Welcome along to the Muscle and Hustle podcast. We're back. We're live from Dublin, from Primal Studios and Swords. 20 seconds right.
Sorry, just
the worst time drink of water. No.
Yeah, we are live. Can't thank Dal enough for having us. And as usual, we're going to deep dive in here. The last, I'd say, 6 months plus have been pretty heavy and intense. But even today, I got a message from somebody saying they went back and listened to the last 5.
Yeah.
And the relatability of it was exactly what they needed. And I think that's one of the reasons why people aren't actually sharing it, because they're so heavy.
Yeah, well, that's a fella did say to me, he sent me the podcast and he's like, this here, it was when we were talking about the zombie mode thing. And he goes, I would share it, but he goes, I don't want to share it because then if people will reach out to him and go, are you all right, lad?
Yeah.
No, are you okay? And he's like, and he is okay. But it harked back to a certain time in his life where he was in the complete head down zombie mode. And he's like, I just didn't share it because I don't want people thinking that, you know, I'm in that mode at the minute. But I was like, it's okay to share it. It's okay for people to think you're in that mode where you can actually say to them, because most of the time when somebody reaches out to you, it's because it's in their head. You know, it's in there like, oh, I could be in that mode, and they kind of want to ask you like wee questions or like nip at you and then try to get some sort of feedback, and then they go, fuck. And then the realization hits them that maybe they could be going through that wee problem as well. But yeah, they've been hitting home really well these last few.
It's very tough to be fully open as an individual online. Like even for us, I know people be open and they say they are, but I'm talking about where you're open on your weaknesses, not saying, oh, I have a big property business and I struggle with this. Turn around and going, I've done really well here.
Yeah.
But this is where I've actually fucked up. And I think I think I told you this last time. I don't want to say, I'm obviously never saying a name. I keep all this confidential. But I had somebody approach me about 2 weeks ago and I nearly broke down because they came over to me, and I don't know if I said this to you, and it completely made everything that we've done over the last 3 years, one moment. But 19 years old, came over to me, give no names, where it was or anything, and pretty much goes to me, look, are you Tony? I've seen you online. I was like, yep, dead on, bang on. He goes, I just want to say my friend shared your podcast with me, and I was in a really dark spot around Christmas, and I don't know where I'd be if I didn't listen to them. I didn't ask him an exact episode. I didn't ask him. He just goes, the two of you talked so open, and he goes, and you were talking about a real low point in your life, even though he goes to me, you look like you have everything together. And I turn around on the spot and goes, I have fuck all together. Yeah. It might look like that from the outside, but everybody is winging it. And I goes to him, just never feel under pressure. And he just goes, the pressure completely lifted off me. He goes, it felt like I was being crushed. And he just goes like, I was in a really dark spot. And he just goes, and see when he goes, I just don't know where I'd be right now without you. And he goes, now I'm eating right, I'm training right, and I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to other people, I'm reading books. And he goes, I don't feel unbelievable, but he goes, I don't feel like the way I did. I don't feel like I'm going to do anything stupid. And I just turn around and goes, if you ever need me, give me a shout. But see 3 years of podcasting for that one person.
Yeah.
Because it sounded really dark. Like it sounded like that person needed help and he didn't know who to reach out to. And I was like, fuck, I would have loved him to message me. And I really do mean that now. Obviously, Instagram beats nuts. But see that for me makes everything worthwhile. Yeah. See everybody that wrote to me being like very deep, very heavy, very hard on yourself. I'm looking to help that one person because I've been there myself in a dark place. Yeah. And you want that, you need to turn around and go, somebody's been worse or somebody's been there and they can pull through. And I just wanted to say thank you to that person for coming up because it really did. Yeah. It really made a big difference in my day.
Well, that's when we went back to day dot, that was the reason why we got into this. Like we don't take on sponsorships. We give shout out to people for free. Everything we do it because it does help people. And in a weird way, it helps us. You know, it helps us, and we get to talk about stuff that we wouldn't normally talk about. Like, how many men do you know that talks about, like, everybody loves to talk about the wins. You know, even like in your own industry, especially in the fitness industry, everybody talks about the wins. You know, it's all about the wins. I won this week, I did this that week. But people, behind every win, there's probably a hardship. You know, they talk about easy life. You know, everybody loves the easy life. But really, any life worth having is never going to be easy. You know, that's you know, any person, be it a footballer, be it someone in your industry, be it in my industry, like the hardship you have to go through before you even get to the good part. You know, it makes it even more worth it. And like for that young fella to come up to you, like I get it a lot of time with students. There's a couple of boys from Armagh that I have a kind of running joke with, but they come up to me at times and they would like show a podcast and go, geez, lad, that one hit hard. You know, driving home after a week in uni. And it does make you just like sometimes when me and you're talking here, it's like we're talking to each other. Like the people, the audience doesn't come into it until it's out there. So we're having a genuine conversation about genuine things, about genuine feelings, about genuine disappointment and hurt, or something we've went through or something we've got through. And then it's as if someone's hearing our internal dialogue. It's like the diary of the CEO. He's talking as if what's the thing he says? Hopefully nobody shares this. But if they do, or
if anybody's listening, I hope nobody's listening. But if you do, keep it to yourself.
Exactly.
That's the way I want it. Yeah.
That's kind of like me and you are having a conversation, and then people are privy to it.
Yeah,
and that's how we speak so openly. We don't. There's no agenda. There's never been an agenda with this podcast.
I try to be like that though whenever I'm talking to anyone. Now. I try and be as open as possible. Now, if somebody goes, "How are you?" I'm not going to turn around and go, "I feel like shit today."
Yeah.
But if somebody wants a proper conversation, or I try to listen and then try to give an honest take on it, or where I'm at, I do feel like that's something that there's a lot of where you're not foreshadowing, what's the right word? You're shielding almost. That's where that vulnerability as an individual comes forward. And that's the reason why a lot of people have issues then, because whenever you sweep stuff under the carpet, and as you said, if you have a relationship breakdown, you have family issues, you have addiction, you have anything, the more you sweep problems under the carpet, the bigger it gets. And then on top of that, you don't know how to deal with it. And then you need people who have really been through the ringer. And I think whenever you became semi-successful in some fields and not in all, you have went through the ringer. Like, for example, I've had multiple relationships break down. I've had family issues. We've had addiction in our family. We've had issues with me being externally validated. You're talking, I've been picked on as a kid. I was fat. So there's everything there. So the beauty is that the more you've been drilled down in any area of your life, realize that that's building you forward. You probably won't have a really good relationship until you have a shit one and you fuck it up, and vice versa with family. My family life was not always perfect until we really worked at it. And then it got better over time. It's still like a skill acquisition. I think was there any major topics you wanted to run over today? Maggie, ping me some absolute belters.
There's one thing just before we move on. When we talk about sweeping things under the carpet, you can sweep things under the carpet and forget about it. And forget that it's never, you can learn from it, but you forget that it's ever happened. And you just move on. You move far away from it. Say if you had a bad breakup, you move far away from it. Or you can do what we do, or what we try to do. And we try to address it in an open forum, because someone that could be listening could help them. Because it's good it's not good to bury it, but it's good to move on from it. But as we say, if you don't learn from it, it will happen again.
One thing you said to me when I was going through a little bit of an issue about 6-7 months ago, I feel like I've made so many mistakes without realizing. And you said to me, and it stuck by me, and it's not a mistake if you learn from it.
Yeah,
and
it's never.
Yeah, and that really stuck by me, because you can look at the chessboard, you can see all the moves you've made, and you can go, that was a fucking mess. How did I make that move? But you cannot change that. All you can do is learn, look forward, and make the best next move.
We'll think about it in the most cultiest thing possible, right? That's the cultiest thing possible. The cow does not get hit by electric fence more than once. Once he goes to that electric fence, he knows to never go past it again, because that's a bit of pain. So he learns from that mistake, and they never go past that again. Or they could do the elephant and the baby elephant and the rope.
What?
So when an elephant's a baby in the circus, they put a wee rope around its ankle.
I know exactly.
And tie it down. And then when it's big, it doesn't try to break away, because it couldn't break away when it's young. Because it's your brain is created that's all you know. That rope has always held you there.
Precondition.
But that's the same as life. If you keep going through heartache or breakups or financial shit and keep spending all your money, all you know in your life is your money's gone, because you've not learned from the problems. But if you learn from it once, you'll not make the same mistake again unless you choose to make it. Well, and, you know what I mean? Unless you go out of your way to make that same mistake over and over again, or if you keep getting into relationships and being a bollocks and playing away, you're not learning. You're not learning. Like, you're just,
With the precondition thing as well, with the elephant thing. See, with preconditioning, it's shown in studies, it's shown in research. Like if you listen to Mo Gaddad, or you listen to any big neuro sort of scientist, or anybody that's tuned in that front, like it usually takes about 9 times for every one. So if you turn around and you say, I'm shit at sex, you need 9 positive, not affirmations, but confirmations from yourself to outweigh that, to change the neuroplasticity. This is how people go from addicts to not addicts. It's also how people go from being shit at something and fucking their heads up to being good. It's like if you're shit at golfing and you keep telling yourself you're shit, you do ingrain that thought process. It affects your confidence, it affects you forward. But a really good one is if you tell yourself you're shit at sex or you're shit in the bedroom, you need to give yourself 9 reasons why you're not, because otherwise what happens is you ingrain that thought process. Your brain actually molds that neuroplasticity and it rewires that into you. Versus if you can think for 9 positives for every 1 negative, it's shown that you can actually rewire the other way. And this will actually then in turn help you in every area of your life. So it sounds a wee bit heavy and that sounds deadly to do, but I've actually done that with pen and paper. So if you list, like say for example, you have an issue in your family, say your dad's an addict or something. You write down the reasons that's annoying and that's a nightmare. And then for every reason you write, you have to write on the right-hand side. D. Martini made me do this before. You have to write down on the right-hand side the reasons why you're grateful for that.
Yeah.
So for example, say you number 1 is, fucked with my childhood, but then you could be closer with a different family member, you could be closer with your friends, you might be into something because of this, and then you slowly become grateful and aware that you're actually glad for the position you're in. It's like that eraser test I was talking about in the other podcast. If out of everybody that's been through a really bad trauma in their life, they took them into Harvard or Stanford and they asked them that you could erase the trauma, the really bad incident, but you have to take a gamble on whether you end up the same. And 99.9% of people take the trauma because they are happy with where they're at now, because that pain point has led them to where they are. And I think that in its sense of, if 99.9, that means so many people never take back the bad, no matter how bad it is right now for you. You're not going to want to erase it in 5 years. So the problem is you're just not paying right now. And you just have to look at it from the outside in, and that'll always help.
The journey.
Yeah, it is. It's not really in depth.
That kind of brings us into the thing we were talking earlier about the pitfalls of young men and men in general in society.
Yeah.
Because like, it's something that it's talked about. It's, you know what? It's actually been talked about a lot more. And I'm not saying it's cool to talk about it, but men are more open to talk about stuff like that now. And I think, no, it's a brilliant thing, but young guys especially are more open to talk about it, whereas before everything was seen as masculinity. You're young. Well, sure, what would you have any issues? Sure, you're a young buck living the life and, but...
What would you say young man counts as, though, 18 to 30?
Probably 30, 32.
18 to 35, maybe.
And around that. It's just,
I feel like you don't get your shit together until you're 40, probably plus.
Well, that's the thing. People can have their shit together at an early age, and other people don't. But it's one of those things where even if you're not a young man, there's more people now, even in their middle ages, that are realizing that they have issues that back in their day they couldn't talk about, or there just wasn't the resources to talk about. Especially like there's more and more people from rural communities in Ireland that are suffering from depression and anxiety and different stuff. But because of the kind of the upbringing they had, where it's, it's the hardest upbringing in the world, like rural work and farmers and that community, that they wouldn't have addressed any problems. They barely go to the doctor. It's sort of thing, if it's not hanging off.
But sometimes it's interesting because whenever you break that down, you look at it like, you look at that life where they might have mental issues as well versus somebody's very open. But then you look at like a third world country or what's going on in Ukraine, and you think, well, then people don't even have time for mental health issues.
Yeah.
Because your physical health's under check. And I think that's very big reality check. Now, I'm not saying your problems aren't real, but always reflect on that can always help.
Modern society does add a lot of problems to people, and they don't realize they add problems. Like people always say, like about the third world country, like look at them, all the smiles on their faces. And yeah, they have their own hardships. But young people in modern society now, there's a lot of extra shit that goes on, and there's a lot of extra stuff. There's a lot of extra pressures where they feel like they have to, live up to that social thing.
You're not equipped. Like in school, it doesn't teach you how social media affects your brain.
Yeah.
How people are like, this being straight. Like for example, sometimes mates are now picked off income, status, following. Yeah. And you're taught that you just need a good job and to be a good person. Whereas a lot of the time now, you need to reevaluate where you're at. And some people are getting lined up with the wrong individuals because their values.
Yeah.
So like for example, you're chasing money and followers and X, Y, and Z, but you don't really actually value that stuff. You're just being taught by society that that's what you want.
Yeah.
And then you wonder maybe why you're unhappy or why your partner now doesn't align with you, and they're completely. They're fit for that role and that's what they want, but then you're burning out. Your soul is burning.
Yeah.
And I feel like that to an extent is, maybe I wouldn't say partner, but that is an extent of the way I was to an extent. I was chasing X, Y, and Z, But deep down, my values are, family, time, freedom, fun. And I was like, fuck, I'm chasing all these. Why
There was
am I not
confusion.
happy?
Yeah, there was a confusion time where you wanted this, but this is what really meant things.
What you want and what you need are two different things.
But
yes.
also you were excited by that. You're excited like
shiny object syndrome. You see that
exactly, and then when you got it, like you as soon as you got that, you were like, "There's no difference."
Not everything that glitters is gold. You see, but you don't know until you pick it up. It could be just shiny poo. So there's a lesson for you. But yeah, no, I think pitfalls for men. I'm gonna rattle some off. I definitely think porn. We chatted about that briefly beforehand. I think too much porn. I don't believe you have to go no fap, but I don't believe that you should be literally learning sex by watching people. The actual visual idea of watching two other people fuck, and you're watching that, you're almost telling yourself you're a spectator.
Yeah.
And I've had men write to me before and say that they struggle because they're now in first person versus third person. They actually find it, which is very interesting. I would say other pitfalls is not developing as a man, as an individual, not just physique, but also mental capacity. What brought you from 18 to 25 is not the skill set, the mindset you need from 25 to 30. Really good example is like, you need to become good at like looking after yourself, cleaning, moving out, being more sustainable.
Yeah.
Not to the environment, but yes, you should, but you get my idea. And then I feel like even just it's always like, I went to a course before and I was talking to Dan before we came on, and what brought me to a 7-figure business won't bring me to an 8-figure business. What brought me to 28 isn't necessarily what's going to make me, I can roll from 28 to 35 as I am.
Yeah.
But that skill set isn't going to be where I need to go. And it's very important that you forget who you were, because they move on as a man. Not that you need to kill that person, but you need to lose the emotion, because sometimes people are afraid to change because what got them here is that value system.
You have to evolve.
Yeah, and I think some people don't evolve because they're like, it's pretty good here.
Yeah.
And they're like, will it get better or is it not? And then they hold on to this older version of themselves. But as long as you're holding on to that older version and values and beliefs, that you're not willing to kill it completely, cut the weeds out, you're never going to change in the person you need to be for that next area. And then that's where I believe like you sort of uncontentment happens.
Yeah, it's a different kind of, it's whatever's got you to the game, whatever gets you, say, to the Super Bowl, isn't going to win you the Super Bowl, because it's a different dynamic. It's the same when I was pushing hard to get the FIFA gigs, to get the big gigs. What got me them gigs wasn't the same thing that kept me in them gigs. Because once I got there, I had to evolve because I belonged there. Until I got that first gig, I didn't know if I ever belonged to be in them circles or in them conversations. But once I got there, I had everything changed. So I had to do what I'd done and evolve to stay there and to continue to stay there for a period of time. And that's where the problem lies with the kind of young society now, where they come say through and they're 18, 19, 20 and they go to uni and they kind of find out who they kind of maybe think they are in uni. And then after uni, there's that time where you don't know where you want to go, or you don't know where you're being, or your identity is a wee bit mystified because society now sees you as a complete adult. You're not a student anymore. So you struggle with that changeover. And then you might realize, we've talked about this before, I don't want to, like my degree, I don't want to do that. That's what I wanted to do when I was 17 or 18, when I decided I wanted to go and do law. But now I don't want to do that anymore, or now I don't want to be this thing anymore. Whereas then you're stuck with this non-identity, or you were the young underage sports star, and now you're just an also ran 25-year-old. People are like, "Fuck, man, when he was 17, he was the best in the business." Yeah. Or he had trials for United, he had trials for Liverpool, and now people looking and go, "Fuck, he's just a normal guy," but you're still the same person. But there's pitfalls in there where like people you get trapped and hold on to the past. I had this conversation with a guy a couple of weeks ago, and he's in his 40s and he played for Northern Ireland. He played in the Premiership, and he was in our company, and he was showing me pictures of him playing in the Premiership. And I laughed, and he goes, "Why are you laughing?" I was like, "Lad, that's fucking 20 years ago." I was like, "You're probably a better person now." And he's like, "Aye, but it's not class." And I was like, "I'm well aware of your career. Like, I would have seen you on TV, but I was like, There's more to you than them fucking pictures, lad. And then the next day, he Instagrammed me because he doesn't have my number. And he was like, you know what? He goes, you're fucking right. He goes, every time I get a couple of drinks in me, I take out these pictures and show everybody. He goes, it's embarrassing. I was like, it's not nothing to be embarrassed about. But I was like, you're far more interesting than them pictures.
Yeah.
I was like, you're far better than them pictures. And he's like, yeah. He goes, I don't know why you do it. And I was like, because that's how you think people see you as. Whereas I see you as, you're, like, I only met him a couple of times. I was like, you're deadly crack. You're a lovely fella. And I know what everything you played for your country, you played in the Premiership, you played against the best of the best. But I was like, you're more than that, like.
You've all met a celebrity or you've met a person that is of high status in some field.
Yeah.
And they're a ball bag and it just takes completely away from them because I don't care if you're Wayne Rooney. If you're a prick, you're a prick.
No, it doesn't matter what you are. You're still a prick, like.
Don't get me wrong, Wayne Rooney's not a prick, but you get my idea of...
Tony doesn't like Wayne Rooney. Clip that one, please.
So pretty much when you break it down, it's one of them things where it doesn't matter what you've done, it matters who you are, in my opinion, because if I meet you... Now, everybody has their own shit, so I don't always say if you meet somebody that's the truest representation of them because... You know, if you fucking bump into somebody like me, Dat, and Pretty Hard now, not the same energy as it would have been.
Yeah.
So judging my complete character off that, maybe you still should. But it's one of them things where you want to take that into consideration because for all you know, like I always say this, like whenever somebody like is rude to me or something happens, I always think now, fuck, hopefully like in the back of their head, like wonder what's going on with them because to be a dick all the time, shit's usually going wrong for you. It might be your own fault.
Yeah.
But some people don't take that responsibility or can't handle that. And as you're saying about the identity thing, that also happened to me with the fire service. Like I really struggled to lead the fire service because I was seen as the pillar. That's who I wanted to be, the pillar of the community, helping people. I wanted to be seen as that good person, whereas I could do more help the other way. And it's definitely one of them things that's very easy to loop in. And I would say as a young man, a pitfall is, like maybe not young man, but a pitfall definitely is living to 80, but down to 25.
Yeah.
You need to evolve. Now, that doesn't mean you have to change career and you have to do this, but you have to actually think for yourself and go, am I still living or am I existing? Because there's a very big fucking difference.
What I was about to say is, would you say, so you're living now?
Oh, fact.
But when I first met you,
existing.
You were existing. It was all like the difference I see in you now from when we first met, when you coached me. Like when I would have told you, here, lad, I'm way out at the weekend. You'd be, why would you do that?
I know, yeah, absolutely.
Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, the boys. But it wasn't like, you were like, right. And you were like, right, no, it's fair enough. Go on out. He goes, sure, we'll just knock off that week and we'll be back to do it one day again. And back then, like, you're still in the zone, but you were in, like, the deep zone, like the...
Wee bit much. Like, do you know what it is?
But then it was new to you.
I said to myself, I would give myself 5 years of... I always heard the thing, sacrifice your 20s and live the rest. But I would say from 22 to 27 there, I went all in.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I can't turn around and say I regret it because I don't.
But you loved it.
I loved it. And the thing is, it's given me everything I had now. Like, I would never have had the capital to reinvest in property, so I don't have to work now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have all the results. I wouldn't have the app. So as much as you can say it did pay off fully for me, but I did sort of go monk mode for 5 years. And then it's obviously taken its toll. But I made them choices. As much as you can be like, oh, I didn't see it. You made your choice. It's just like, for example, with anything, if you choose to go out every weekend and I'm working normal, there's nothing wrong. Then that is your choice. It's not that you didn't find your passion or it's not. That is your choice. You still need to take responsibility for it.
But it's when you complain about it. Like people go, oh, my life's not changing. No, I'm not earning any more money. And you're like, but you're not doing anything to change it. You know, that's where like that
I don't know is the big cop out there.
Evolving,
I don't know what to do.
So it's like I always think of it this way. You know, like when someone finds religion, the first couple of years they're like hardcore into religion, and then they realize I don't have to be as hardcore because this is what suits me better, and they start like relaxing and just they're still as faith based and as religious as ever, but they're not. They don't tell you it every time. It's like when somebody joins CrossFit. All they do is talk about CrossFit. And then a year down the line, they still do CrossFit and they're dead at it, but they don't need to tell you every second of the day. It's like vegans. They don't need to tell you I'm a vegan. You're like, I know you've been a vegan for a long time. But at the start, they love to tell everybody, I'm a vegan.
Pitfall of a young man, by the way, vegan.
What?
You know, pitfall of a young man there as well.
Are you really a man if you're a vegan?
I will let you away with that because, to be honest, there's some good things there as well and good healthy diet.
But you know, like when you talked about you evolved, like we were talking about what got you to the game isn't what kept you in the game.
What would you say from an outside in perspective would be brutally honest, I don't take it offensively. What would you say is the pitfalls I fell into as a young man? And just go, like, there is, and I'll start naming them myself, chasing external validation,
Yeah.
maybe too much focus on like muscle building and not enough internally, maybe not enough nights
Well,
out.
when
You go, obviously your balance and my balance is two different
Yeah.
things.
So you lost when you were on the push for 100K, right? I understood your push, but I knew when you hit it, you would go
Anticlimax.
aye
Like,
because we
seeing a
talked.
girl with really nice boobs
Aye.
and then getting them out and going, fucking flopper.
But I knew when you hit it, like, and I remember saying to you when you were getting close, "Do you think this is going to change anything?" And you were like, "I don't know." But I knew that. I have this thing, right, and this like Tony
Chasing the
probably,
rabbit. That's
Tony
my
probably
pitfall.
knows this. Sometimes when I see Tony doing stuff, I would pose a question to him to see if it tweaks in his head.
Doesn't-
Instead of me going, "I think this is wrong," I would say something like, "Do you think hitting 100K is going to change your life?"
That's better though, because when
Because-
you tell me, that's not right, I would get very self-defensive and then
Aye.
stubborn, and that is
Yeah.
one of my greatest strengths, but also my greatest weakness. You
Yeah.
usually find that in a character.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's kind of nobody likes. No,
If
if
your
you're
best trait is probably going to be your worst.
if
to
you're
some extent.
if you're balls deep and driven, and someone tells you shouldn't be doing that, you're gonna go, "Fuck you! You just don't have it in you like I have it in me, and this is what it's going to be." But
one of the main reasons why, and I don't like this, but one of the main reasons I've done well is because I'm so stubborn I won't quit.
Yeah.
But that's also fucked me over loads of times,
Yeah.
because I'm so stubborn that I won't quit that I end up just walking the walls.
yeah,
Like repeatedly the same mistake going, this will work if I work harder. Yes, it
but
will.
then that's
there's easier ways.
probably a trait of a successful person.
Same as you, yeah, but it's the same as like, for example, if you think you're really good at something, like say I'm like, I'm a great coach.
Yeah.
That's really good because you're confident you can make decisions, but it stops you learning then. Vice versa, if you're a really good businessman, you're like, I know more than everyone.
Aye, but if you're not self-aware,
Yeah, it's both.
yeah,
It-
if you
believe-
tally that with self-awareness, you're starting to become nearly unstoppable.
I think that's where people don't. They go, I have strengths and I have weaknesses.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's a strength without a weakness. They're literally.
Yeah.
It's not like you can go right. Look, my strength is I'm super well balanced as an individual, but I bet you're not a master or something. Versus if you're a master or something, I can guarantee you're shit at something. So I do
yeah.
believe it's in life. It's all about pick your poison, because you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be able to balance everything. You're not going to be good at everything. But what you decide to make your strengths, double down on them and go for it, but just
Yeah.
watch your blind side, because that's where I was like, oh, I'm just shit at these. No, you're shit because you're good at this and you blindsided
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but pitfalls, I quite like this, because this is like an open
Yeah.
friend to friend where
So-
you're going,
Well, we'll go back to the.
so that would be
100
chasing the rabbit.
when you chase that, but I understood why.
Yeah.
And that, but when I watched you doing it, I was kind of like, what next? Like, what's his next thing? And then when you hit it, you hit it well, and you kind of went, right, I've ticked that now, and you dealt with that, whereas other people that have maybe more overnight success, because yours wasn't overnight by any stretch. Now the final thing was pretty
35
quick.
to 35 to 100K in a couple.
Aye, it was pretty quick, but like
Business didn't really explode, though.
4,000 to 20. But then, how much more business could you have done?
I couldn't. Well, my followers in years went 900, 1,800, 3,600. Sorry.
You had 14,000 when we started this podcast.
So in years, my following went 900, 1,800, 5,600, 18K, 33K, and then 5.5 years in, I popped.
Yeah.
But that's in years. And see if you add up them totals,
Yeah.
I double or triple every single year. So actually, I should have hit 100K by June this year anyway, because
Yeah.
I hit 35. So I should have been due 110.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing is, I just got it in 3 months. And then what happened? I haven't grown since. So I'm due to double again over the next year or so. But
Yeah.
I think that's a very
But you
interesting
don't care
take.
about the double now.
No, I honestly don't care. For me, because property is sort of my main game, it's also helped me away from externally. Now, don't get me wrong, fitness is as well, but it's helped me not validate myself off what people know. I know myself what I'm worth. I know that's
Yeah.
passive. I know that's going to support me and my family long term. And that's where my values and vision lie. I'm interested as well. What else, apart from that, would you say? I'm not trying to pick myself apart, but I think us being very vulnerable, and I'll
I
be open with
actually
you.
don't know. I just actually don't know any more of your pitfalls. When we first met, you were once again monk mode.
What about a pitfall I'm going to fall into in the future? Could you foresee that? I know that sounds like Mickey's turning into a psychic, but for anyone that's 27, 28.
I think if you did double to the 200, say you hit 250k followers, right? I think, right, that you could be tempted to go down the influencer route.
Right. That's
No,
okay.
you could be tempted, but I also
You'd be
think
cracked.
your mum would put an end to that very quickly if you started like
Not
doing
good looking.
doing
mate.
silly stuff. You know, you don't even have to be good looking. Look at the wee protein bar boy running about, bouncing about, like doing nightclub stuff. You just have to have a personality. And that's all people. But I think
I don't have either.
I don't think you would do. You might. I don't know if you do Love Island. You said that, but I think you'd be
I'd be
tempted.
the shortest guy in there.
You would be tempted. They're all short, Tony. It's just the way the camera looks at them. They're all tiny. Sure, when
Yeah.
Andrew Gollard comes in, it looks like he's fucking 6'9".
Yeah.
But I think you
That's
could.
interesting.
I do think if you did go up, like if you did double your followers, which is going to happen over time because you're giving people that much free.
Value.
Like, to be honest, you're giving people that much free advice and free out there. Nobody has to buy a program off you.
No, I don't sell.
Like
anything,
I
really.
done for a change up last week. I did your legs, your legs
Good
thing. you put out.
session.
It's a class session, but when you read it, you're going, it's a wee bit low volume. This,
No.
but I'm a balls to the wall in it, and it was
Okay.
class. So I'm thinking to myself, the thing always give away your best stuff for free, and then people will come back to you. But that's where I see maybe you could be. I don't know if you would do it, but I know definitely you would listen to the conversation about going down that route.
I would say, yeah, I definitely think that's interesting. And that leg workout is also sort of a metaphor for life. It's not about quantity, it's about quality and everything,
Yeah.
like work blocks as well. And stay tuned this week because we are going to do an 8-minute hustle. This is going to be the first time we're doing this.
Yes.
8-minute hustle where we're going to do just one of us talking for 8 minutes about something particularly we're fond of
Yeah.
and that we think is going to give a lot of value. So that will be up probably middle of the week. And I think you'll really enjoy that.
Probably a Thursday or Friday. The normal podcast will always be out Monday 6 a.m. and then this one will be out probably, or the 8-minute hustle will be out on a Thursday or Friday.
I give big credit to Mickey because he thought of the name. He laid it all out and credit where credit's due. One thing that I would say is quite interesting with the strengths and weaknesses, I would say is also down to your biggest strength and your biggest weakness. Your biggest strength definitely is your biggest weakness. And I wonder, do you know what it is?
Broad skills.
I would say it's your, and no, this is not me licking his balls. It's just me being straight. You're super smart on a large scope.
Aye.
So you know a good bit about everything. Like if we were to talk about ads, you know a good bit. Marketing, yes.
Yeah.
Fitness, yes. DJing, yes. Day-to-day life. And I feel like whenever you start to gather that much knowledge, it can be tricky to continue learning in different fields. Now, you
Yeah.
do take in other people's thing, but at the same time, sometimes I find whenever I'm like that, seeing fitness, for example,
Yeah.
that is the one field. See, when somebody starts talking about fitness or business even now, I start going, before they even start speaking too much about it, I'm like, I fucking know this. And the thing is, that definitely holds me back. And I wonder, see the amount of skill sets you have in terms of marketing, all these areas where, like, for example, when we talk about crypto, you'd know somebody, you'd have a good idea, and you'd have no. But the problem is, I wonder, do you feel like at times that could hinder you? Because I feel like that hinders me in fitness. That hinders me.
If I'm interested in that, so if anybody doesn't know, I have a kind of motto where every day I want to learn something new. Just if it could be the biggest load of pish, but I'll learn something new every single day. Like we did the thing about the behavioral disorder. That was one of the things I learned about that week, right? Or that day. If I'm interested in it, I'll always want to hear other people's take. And that's where I think I get a lot of my strength and weaknesses, because instead of just taking it at face value, I'll actually think about it more and go, how would that work for me? How wouldn't it work? Is it right? Is it wrong? Instead of just going, oh, that's foolish, that's stupid. But because I do so much driving, this might be weird. This might be weird for people, right? I do not ever listen to music in the car.
What do you do when you drive?
Podcasts and audiobooks.
Do you ever? We talked about this in the last podcast about writer's block and how driving and
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of similar. So if you ever need to reflect, the reason people take drives or they go for walks is because it takes up one side of your brain.
Yeah.
And then you can use the other side to think. So it just keeps you moving, right, left, or driving, that then you can actually be creative and think of it. That's why I usually get my best content ideas or get my problem solving. So maybe the same way you were reflecting.
I do voice to text. I have voice to text app where I talk and it'll write it all into notes.
Lies, Mickey text me driving. Heard it here.
No, well, no, I mean like
3-hour spin just writing paragraphs.
like mad 400 word things.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, sometimes it doesn't pick up the Oma twang, but
Oh, I was going to
Or
say.
and it doesn't like rain. I noticed on the way down here today. It doesn't
Yes.
like rain and the voice to text. But I'll always try to like no, sometimes I do like check out and I listen to the GA social. Or I listen to there's been a few
You don't
good
listen to music.
never
Suppose
listen to
you do
music.
play music.
Never listen to music. Oh, I listen to music in the gym. I don't listen to music at home. And
Do you not
I
listen
play
to music at home?
Nope, not anymore.
Why?
I don't know. It just got away from it. I listen to music when I'm like sorting music. When I'm making music, I don't listen to music because on like
When you're
subconscious.
cooking dinner, do you just cook in silence?
Probably have a podcast on.
Oh, see, that's constant learning. See, for me, I used to like. for
No,
example-
no, no. I can. I'll switch over now. At home, it could be a comedy podcast. It could be something
That's
stupid.
Still, I suppose.
No, you're not
conversation-
learning nothing from Mickey Bartlett, like you know.
Because like whenever I was meal prepping earlier, like first thing I do before I even start cooking,
Yeah.
I put on like the 80s and like I had Lionel
Yeah.
Richie on all night. And do you know what I mean? I enjoy cooking
Well,
then.
sometimes
It
when I
turns
get-
a shit
aye.
task into a good
When I
task.
get ready in the morning, sometimes I might stick on like a Sam Fender or Zach Bryan or something
Yes.
like that. I'll stick
Zach
on
Bryan.
something. But most of the time if I'm driving, right, that's dead time.
It is, but do you not struggle to listen to podcast over podcast? Over
No. It's this is
Second, we do a work block. I count that like a work. Like when I listen to a podcast, it's like a work block almost. Suppose
So,
maybe ours.
I've been doing this from 2009 and from 2011 onwards. Like I listened to every Ben Coomber podcast and I learned almost everything I knew about nutrition and training from Ben Coomber's podcast. And then
Not for me.
when training with people like yourself, but then like with crypto, when I would try to get into that when I was like, I don't know,
The topics you're
2013,
interested in.
2013. If I'm interested in a topic, I'll listen to it. Like, it's just like if it's a high performance podcast, I listen to like certain stories that I enjoy.
Well, it's why you type in when you're stuck. Like, for example, I'm struggling with energy management.
Yeah,
You type in energy management podcast and you get like a list of guests on it. So
exactly.
yeah, if you're struggling with relationships, you type that in, you're probably going to get Jay Shetty first, and other people.
And then I will get a broad spectrum of
would say-
other people's views on it. So like if it's Pat Divley, Jay Shetty,
That's definitely a pitfall of young. That's a pitfall of young men.
they take one person's
One person's
Advice
viewpoint
as
and
gospel.
as gospel,
Yeah.
just because they like them. Me and Mickey, what we say is what's worked for us, what we know from our experiences. What that could
Yeah.
change in the next 10 years. That could change fucking next week. We're learning as we go. Every creature's
Yeah.
learning. Number two would be actually looking for answers always externally
antagonist
and
as
not
well.
internally. So there's two balances to this. So I do believe that most people know what they want, what they have to do,
Yeah.
and they know the answers, but they don't like taking responsibility for it. So they'll go looking books, podcasts to actually help their point.
To verify their point.
To
That's
ver-
all people want.
That's why people ask advice. And then,
Yeah.
do you ever get advice from somebody and then you're like, nah, I don't really like that, because you don't believe that. You know what you want, and you're almost just looking to reaffirm. It's to take the choice out of your hands, so you can almost be like, well, I got that from such and such, so you pour off the accountability of it. I do believe, obviously, you can't make every decision internally. And the other pitfall that was coming to mind there is men that are afraid to ask for help. And I don't mean just mental health. I mean having a conversation about how to get a raise, having a conversation about how to have better sex, having a conversation to how to improve your life quality.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask somebody.
That
like,
would be one of my pitfalls, I think.
Yeah.
I don't sometimes reach out and ask for other people's advice on stuff because, and I think this is one of the things, I'm very self-aware, but I'm very self-aware to a point where I would never phone someone. This is a weird thing, right? I will never phone someone without texting them first,
Why?
just in case I'm bothering them.
Interesting.
And I will never call at someone's house unannounced. Say if I'm
I
driving,
think that's manners.
say if I'm
though. I
driving
think that's
past your house,
manners.
but say if I'm actually driving past your house and then you text me and go, "Did you just drive past my fucking house?" And I'd be like, "Aye, lad, I didn't want to call in without texting, and I didn't want to go, hey, lad, what's going on?" And you're like, "What are you at?" And they're like, "I'm actually just driving past your house."
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think that's good manners, though.
But I'm almost no,
Pisses me off.
I'm
Somebody
almost
calls my house randomly.
Yeah,
Yeah, fuck
well-
me. I'm in the middle of a shit.
yeah, but I'm almost so self-aware that I don't like bothering people at all because maybe it's because at certain times.
But then does that pre-program that you are a nuisance or you are an issue or a hassle
I don't
to yourself?
think. No, I think.
'Cause you should be. If I called your house, I'd like to think you'd be fucking grateful.
I think it comes down to the fact that sometimes you're busy or you're under a bit of pressure and your phone won't stop.
Yeah.
And you're like, do you know what? This is the truth. You know what really used to bother me? When people used to fucking try to contact me during freshers. And we would have like, you know what Belfast like during freshers, like 5 events a day. And people are ringing you going, oh laddie, coming out for beers, or can you get us in here? And you're like, just leave me alone for the next 4 days. I'll get back to these because I'm just about keeping above water here. I'm just about, I can't take, I physically have no capacity to take on anything else. And that's where I'm kind of thinking other people's always in the same boat in different ways. So I just don't want to add to their thing by ringing. Or if it's something quick and I go, Tony, what about this idea for the podcast? Or I'll drop you a voice note and you'll get back to me in a few hours. Like, it's not as if, you know, I just think I used to be no self-awareness whatsoever when I was younger. I was probably almost selfish in a way. And then I worked on that so much that I kind of pivoted the other way, that I'm probably too self-aware. But I don't mind it because I understand that I'm maybe too self-aware.
Yeah, well, that's a very tricky one to walk. I do feel like that is where you have to realign that and sort of go, right, well, is that taken away from the fun of my life, or is that taken away from an issue, or does that help me, or am I not in the moment as much?
Well, it probably just means that I'm just not bothering people as much.
Yeah,
but I should probably reach out more to people. Like, there is times I'll go, what do you think of this idea? What do you think of that idea?
Too many chefs, though, also ruin the
exactly
broth.
When sometimes
taking the personal responsibility for the decision, I feel
if I make the personal responsibility for it and I make the mistake and it fails.
Like, really good example. Do you know what's a really good example? Sorry, I don't mean to, is I have after this podcast to show you 5 properties I'm looking at in Belfast. They're all 8-story apartment blocks, right? Sorry, they're 8 apartment blocks in a building. And they're in different areas. Now, whenever I think about people who know Belfast, I'm like, well, you've got a pretty good idea. You're going to know if something's going on. That's a valid opinion for me to get involved because of the area. Me asking you about a random place in fucking Dublin probably can get something, but at the same time, I'm just looking to pie off my duty and go, yeah, well, he said it's good, so that backs me up.
Yeah.
Versus getting a credible opinion. I do think that's actually bang on. Do you know what I think? I don't know what it is, but it just sparked me there. 2 main pitfalls. This would be one main one that loops back into earlier that young men fall into is not knowing their values and what really matters at the end of the day. Instead of, like I did, like you fall into the followers, the money. Instead of going, right, what matters? For me, it's fun, family, time, freedom. And now it's easy to say these things, but does your life reflect it? And a really good example is go, right, fun is the most important thing in my life. What am I doing every day and week for that? Because otherwise fun's not it might be the biggest value in your head, but your biggest value is you're working 60-hour weeks. So work's your biggest value. Now, you might be like, well, no, it's not, but your time reflects that. It's the same as when people go, family is the most important thing to me. And I go,
what are you doing to cultivate that?
Show me the 6 hours a week you spend with family, or the date nights you plan with them, all that there that you play. And people go, oh, well, family is it's not the most important thing to you. You're telling yourself that to make you feel good. But it's not, and it's fine. See if work is the most important thing to you and you can accept that, that's fine, because you're not getting cross wires because you're going, family's the most important thing to me. When you're spending all your time with work. Whereas if work is and you spend all your time, that's fine. That is fine. You're telling yourself the truth. Whereas a lot of people, especially young men, do end up lying to themselves. And they trick themselves into this, or they chase this path of what they think is right rather than what's right for them. And see, this leads into my second point of what I think is a big pitfall. Just because you don't see somebody successful in money does not mean they're not successful in life and you shouldn't take advice from them. The best advice I always get is from my sister. And she is not fucking minted off her head with money, but she's a really good person. She enjoys the little things. And I would actually say I'm jealous at times of how much she enjoys a fucking ice cream or a sunny day. Like, Joe, the simple pleasures. And it's shown in studies that the more self-aware you are, the more critical you are. And if you listen to this podcast, you probably fall in that bracket. The actual harder it is to be content on a daily basis because you're more switched on in that field. So there's pros and cons.
Definitely.
So sometimes, like, for example, I remember turning around there and being like, how do I enjoy the little things more? She's like, you just do. And what I found worked really well is I always make sure that for meals out and stuff or for activities, she is there because she's good energy and I enjoy things more because she does. Like, see, whenever I show my dad or my sister, say, a view or we go on holidays, like, it doesn't matter if the wine is fucking £2. They'd be like, oh, isn't this unreal? And feel the heat and then I feel like, oh, fuck, I'm enjoying all these things more. Takes you out of your head. And the thing is, I feel like for a long time there, I fell in the pitfall of, if you're not making more money than me, or you don't have more followers, or if you're not bigger, more muscular than me, what the fuck you give me advice for? That is the fucking worst mindset you can fall into. Whereas, how to be a good dad, I'm going to learn that from my dad. how to be a good mum, learn it from mum, but I'm obviously not going to be a mum. But how to be a good person, going to learn that from a sister. These aren't people that are minted off their heads, but they have the right value and they've got gold in the right areas, because at the end of the path, you're not going to turn around and go, how much money do I have? You're going to go, was I actually a good person?
Yeah.
I can guarantee you, whenever you've been a good person,
Yeah.
at the end of your days, you will feel better. And the biggest regrets usually at the end of life, whenever you look at them studies or you look at the books on them, is spend too much time working,
Yeah.
not enough time with family, not enough time making fun memories. And you look at what people are doing, chasing money, chasing all these external things,
Yeah.
trying to go on more nights out, trying to get better Instagram
Yeah.
pictures, trying all this absolute fucking shit that
Stuff
I
that's not
fell
real.
into.
It's not real stuff.
And Joe, the worst thing is I fought, like, you talk about a pitfall, that's a hole in that desk. I went whoosh,
Yeah.
and
Well,
down.
We were talking about pitfalls. Like, one of the things
What a
people
sound
go,
effect.
what do you what do you value? And they go, oh, my girlfriend or my wife. But do you show them that? Do you show them that every day? And you're like,
that.
oh, well, no, like we do that. And I was like, no. Do you show them that? Do you tell them? Do you tell them how special they are? Do you tell them how good they are as a mother? Do you tell them how good they are as a friend? Do you tell them how good they are at their job? Or do you just expect that they know that you think that? Like, that's a big thing. Like, I think most men in a relationship, they'll be like, what means the most to you? And they'll say their girlfriend or their wife or whatever. But do you actually tell them that? I know you think, oh, well, they know it already. They know how much they mean to me. But do you tell and show them that? Because everything else that you put the effort in work, you put the effort in the gym, but do you put the effort in at home? Do you put the effort into your relationship? No, you put the effort into your kids. You play with your kids every time, but do you play with your wife? In different ways. Not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not. You know what I mean?
No,
Do
but it's
you
a good
actually?
example.
No, do you actually? I know, like, people. Oh, we went shopping, or we did this and did that, and they're like, yeah, but that's a small snippet. That's an hour of the week.
Yeah, like I'm moving out of my house now, right? I'm moving into my own house. And one of the things I would always have a habit of doing is I walk into the garage and I put the protein tub down and I just slide it with my foot, right? Over to I know this sounds so off topic, over to the box where I keep my protein. Don't always put it in, right? And I would say I didn't even cop on. I was doing this for maybe 6 months there, right? And I would notice the protein tub always go back in the box. Now, I wouldn't notice it. The next day, I'd just pick it out. And what I realized I copped on was my dad was lifting the box, the tub, and then sitting it in. And the thing is, in your mind, you will continue doing that. But then I value the fact that my dad, I value the fact that that's probably a little bit annoying to him. So instead of me just doing it because, sure, what's the hassle? It's sitting like one meter away. I'm not doing that because of me. I'm doing it because you're causing somebody else another task. Now, he's probably never ever going to even notice that. He probably is just doing a reflex.
Yeah.
But the point is, you're a better person if you're thinking of that because you're thinking of the other person. It's like, it's not about showing them. It's not about just telling them. It's doing something for the sake of it. It's like when people do the charity stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. I actually am launching fucking charity clothing and we're selling it. But whenever you do real charity, it's not usually shown.
No.
And charity starts at home. And it's one of these things where you'll see all these people lean into these external things.
Yeah.
But then there are bailing in the house. Like, fuck me. Take your mum out for, like, people have no problem turning around and going, oh, do you know, I spent X amount in this, or do you know, I gave this much, or I volunteered here. But then you won't even take your own mum out for a cup of coffee who's maybe got mental health issues. Like, mate, go back to roots. You look after your own units and everything else will look after itself. Now, I'm not saying the world doesn't need charity, but I am saying that a lot more people need to focus on
your own doorstep. Worry about your own doorstep before you. If you don't have your own doorstep in order, you can't help everyone else.
No,
that's the thing that people forget. If for us doing this podcast, even, we have to make sure we're in the right frame of mind. We have to take care of ourselves so we can give any value to anyone else or be any way decent for our family or be any way decent for anybody else. We have to be mindful of our own, because there's times like there's people that's trying to help other people in the world, right? But you can tell that they're struggling a bit themselves, and their way of helping themselves is helping other people. But really and truthfully, they're not addressing their own issues. That's it's like a masking agent.
Well, that's like the savior complex.
It's like a savior complex. They think if I help enough people, it'll make me feel better.
CBT told me that whenever I was firefighting, I had to go after the incidents around Primark, and we had a couple of bad car crashes, and they brought me it, and I ended up not really doing too much. And she said that if you don't realize that you can end up developing these things where like I always wanted saved as a young individual.
Yeah.
So lifeguarding, firefighting, coaching, always used to pick women when I was younger that I felt needed help.
Yeah.
Was like, without realizing it, was attracted to these individuals.
Yeah.
And only whenever somebody said you're self-aware and you go, oh, fuck that. You know, you catch on. It's sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, but you'll notice that in your life, there'll be certain individuals you're drawn to and you need to ask yourself why. And it's because usually you wish somebody was looking after you like that yourself.
Yeah. One of the pitfalls too that I was going to talk about, this would be some people that may be a wee bit more popular than others, is doesn't matter about your following, doesn't matter about your like count, your share count, all that shit, right? Them people who do that aren't your friends. And that's where I think a lot of people believe the person you know on Instagram is your friend. No, people, just because they like your shit doesn't mean they're your friends. They're not your friends. Your friends are your friends. A friend, if you like, it's what happened to us. You'll go down the street, somebody will walk past you, and you'll see someone double take you and go, fuck, that's, you know, I follow him on Instagram. But did they come up and say hello to you, shake your hand, or just say, hey, Tony, how's it going? That's someone who maybe wants to be your friend. But if you have 100,000 followers, doesn't mean you have 100,000 friends. A lot of young ones, like I overheard a conversation last week. There was a girl and two fellas were chatting. It was actually Sunday. And one of the fellas went, she only gets 80 likes on her pictures. And the girl goes, the girl kind of went, yeah, I noticed that. And he was like, yeah. And he goes, she's running about thinking she's the bee's knees. She's only getting 80 likes. And I was just thinking to myself, like, what does
sometimes
that?
I only get 300 likes on my photos and I have 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
People go, fake. Who cares?
But who cares? Who cares about the likes and all? But what a lot of people need to remember is, because they're living their life vicariously online and everything's online, your Snapchat, your Instagram, your TikToks, everything, right? That doesn't make you popular. No, it doesn't mean you're friends.
I think a really good quote is, do you ever see the quote for this? It's like, when you artificially inflate the outside, you depress the inside.
Yeah.
Because you're inflating how big you are, how brilliant you are, more followers, good pictures. And then what that does is actually makes your real life seem shitter to you because you know what's behind the curtain, behind the Instagram wall.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. But then I think young men and girls as well are struggling with that because they're like, why, like, you've a small friends group, and that is your friends group. Just because people online are in the comment section kissing your ass doesn't make them friends. And people need to remember that, is because as you get older,
women fall into that trap very, very quickly.
As you get older, but
false sense of confidence.
People don't give a fuck about online shit.
And I believe one of them pitfalls is the fact of, like, you need to look after your inner circle before the outer. So, like, your family, who's a real friend, and that's why you'll notice if you're somebody close to me, I tend to text you a lot now over the last 6 months, just going, just want a finger on the pulse. Is everything good with you? I'm just checking up with my friends now. Yeah, like a lot of the time, people will, even if they're in a bad spot, not always reply. But you open that line, and you'd be surprised how many times I get people that will then come out and say something.
It's definitely getting better. It's getting better. People are being brave, because it does take a bit of bravery. People are braver going, you know what? Hasn't been a great week. This happened, that happened. But you know what? I've seen it. I'm working on it. Everything's like going positive now. But had a couple of bad days there, or a couple of wee dark moments, but it's all good. I'm working on it. We're all good. People are being braver and stepping out.
I think it's the way you say it too. Like, for example, now what I do is if I'm asking my mum or somebody how they are, I go, how are you? And then I immediately repeat the question.
How are you really?
How are you really, though? And I always make sure I look at them, put my phone down, and then I get a true answer. And a lot of the time for my mum, for example, she'll say, like, okay, and then she'll go, do you know what? Not that great. And it opens that line. It just breaks it down. And I feel like, see that for me. And one of the things, see about looking after people in your inner circle. Now, this is, if you're not like this, is completely understandable. But one of the reasons you want to do this is because, and I always got this quote from my ones. They always said, look after everybody in your way up because you'll need them in your way back down. What goes up must come down. And I guarantee you will need them people at some stage. And if you haven't been looking after them, you're going to go, the world is against me. Nobody helps me. I'm by myself. Yeah. The reason you're by yourself, even if your family is shit and you don't have close friends, is because you haven't nurtured, you haven't helped other people. So it's a really good example is when you walk by people that need help in your life and their issues are whenever you have a relationship breakdown or you have family issues and people don't pitch in to help. Yeah. As much as it sounds like shit, when they don't, it's because they feel no need to. They don't feel like you're a valid part. As much as you might be like, they're my friends. Versus, like, I've had a lot of shit in the last 6 months and people have came out of the woodwork And you really do learn who's there for you and who's not. And the thing is, now I'm almost doubling down on them. I'm being like, fuck, can I help you? Can I lean in here? And you remember who helped you, and you'll always remember. And it's not who didn't. It's if they didn't, it's because you probably didn't help them enough. I feel like there's external gratification. Like you'll notice this if you listen to me, and you'll notice if you watch my life. I feel like there's overwhelming of like, I need to constantly give back to my family. And it's because in every area of my life, they've gave so much to me that I feel in debt to them. And that's a really nice feeling.
Yeah.
It's good because that gives me an overriding self-worth of like love. And it's something so simple where I make mum and dad a cup of coffee every morning. Even whenever I move to my new house, I can call in, make them a cup of coffee, bring them up. It's not because I'm like, oh, I want to be seen as a good person. It's because I'm like, this is the least I can do for you, Joe. Yeah. And even if people look at it and go, well, you're like, for a large amount of my family stuff I pay for now, money's not important.
No.
At all. So it's one of these things where it's a trade-off and it's looking after them, and they might value that because they don't have it, but vice versa. So I'd say a pitfall is definitely not looking after the inner circle more than the outer, because a lot of people care too much about the artificial outside rather than the internal inside of it.
That's all comes back around to, it comes back around to values. What do they value more? People.
What would you say? Any more pitfalls? Because we're a good 55 in, la.
Any more pitfalls?
Any be wanking over this, you'll be nearly done now.
55 minutes.
you'll
no, I think you could go on all day with various pitfalls for different people, but the thing is, you'll never tick every box. There's pitfalls, but the problem is
to have it all figured out.
Nobody's got it figured out. Like we haven't got it figured out. Like for the last few weeks with my day-to-day life, like I felt like I was drowning because the amount of work we had on. Like it was a struggle. But I just had to take a step back and go to myself, right, how do I fix this? A couple of days, I just had to work into the evening, sort out a few things. And as soon as I got that wee bit ahead, then the clarity came back, the fog was away. And I was like, right, I see the strategies here now. Boom, boom, boom. Everything's back on the plan. But there was a good week, and it was down round when I was in Cork, because I had to take a few days off. So now I've realised that I'm taking on too much. I'm working too hard, and I couldn't afford to take them 2 or 3 days off and just relax, because then when I did and I came back, everything was a shit show. So now I've realised now that I need to dictate a wee bit more, need to offload. Like, so I've a girl that's starting out doing TikTok stuff for one of my accounts, because that's what she does. She's in that realm. She understands it. Instead of me trying to get their staff to understand it and tell their staff how to do it, I just went, there's a girl, she fucking does this. That's what she's into. She can do you eight TikToks and reels in a day.
Yeah,
it takes you a week to do 2. She can do this in 6 hours.
Speed.
So pay her X amount of money and she'll do this for you.
You have a delegation in any area. Like, for example, it's like if you are at home and you're really good at cooking, you cook, she can clean, or she can cook, you can clean. It's like delegate what you're shit at and do what you're strong at, and then it gives both time. Look, I think that's a really good podcast. I don't want to shoot over the hour. I like it being under the hour. We just want to thank everybody for listening. If you make sure to like it, rate it,
review it,
share it to your story, and review it, we would appreciate it. And I think that is pretty.
And it's only the 5 stars is the only one that works weirdly. So just hit the 5 star and forget about the rest of them.
Yeah,
because the rest of them are broke.
Pretty solid. So thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to do straight into another live, and you can enjoy this one the following week. Oh, and we'll have an 8-minute hustle in between. So
8-minute hustle, and these are going to be in video and audio. So the video will be on Tony's YouTube, and the video will be on Spotify.
There we go. Fuck me. Leveling up. Son.
Leveling up. Even though I hate the term leveling up, that's going to be in the next podcast.
We'll use something else then.
We have to talk about
hating the word.
Don't know. We hate the word leveling up now.
Right, well, there you go then. We're stepping up. We'll end it on that note. Thank you very much for listening.
Cheers.
Good night.